All right. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session, What's New in Excel with Mr. Excel. My name is Stephanie Bergen, and I'll be the moderator for this session. And I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our very first session of the year and our first Mr. Excel session of 2026. So we're just going to go over a couple of things before we get started. Like I said, with me, I have Mr. Bill Jelen. So Bill is the host of MrExcel.com and the author of 71 books about Microsoft Excel, including Excel Gurus Gone Wild, Pivot Table Data Crunching, and Excel Inside Out. He has made over 80 guest appearances on TV's Call for Help with Leah Lepore and was voted Guest of the Year on the Computer America radio show. He has produced over 2,500 free Excel tutorials, and he was also a three-time commentator for the Excel World Championships broadcast on ESPN. But before founding MrExcel.com in 1998, Bill spent 12 years as a financial analyst for the accounting, finance, marketing, and operations departments of a publicly held company. So just some basic housekeeping. So you will receive the recording and some additional resources. Bill's also going to give us a copy of his 2025 edition of his book, and I'll send that out in the email as well. You'll probably get it by tomorrow. So just keep a lookout for that. If you don't get it, please feel free to reach out and ask for it. And at the end of the webinar, we just have a really basic survey. We just want to get your feedback on what other topics you would like to see and hear about and what you would like to learn more in the future. Nothing too crazy. Ooh, let me go back there. And as a reminder, in order to receive the CPE credit, you must complete 3 out of the 4 live poll questions. So they will pop up during the session. Just answer. It doesn't have to be correct. And then Bill will be emailing them to you directly within 1 week. All right, and now a little bit about us. So MorphRapps is a certified Microsoft and Oracle partner. We have over 450 customers and 34,000 end users. So MorphRapps provides Excel-based solutions that make it easier to manage data in Oracle EBS and Fusion Cloud. Our tools help teams load, update, and validate data accurately and efficiently, reducing risk and saving time. But let's get to what we're really here for. So Bill, take it away.
All right, Stephanie. Hey, thanks very much. It's great to be here. Great to be back in 2026 with what's new in Excel. We have all kinds of cool things here, um, big and little, tiny things and big things. When I went through the list of what they've added, it's really all over the board. Um, if you can see my agenda here, we got about 15 things we're going to try and talk about. Most of them are in this book, Mr. Excel 2025, but a few of them here where the page number says new are so new they slipped in since the book, right? So these are things that will be in next year's book, along with anything else they add between now. And then there's a big meeting coming up at Microsoft, the MVP Summit in March, and they always try and roll out all kinds of new stuff in time for the MVP Summit. So we'll see what happens there, at least what we can talk about. And then that'll go in the 26 book. All right, so I'm going to start off here with something we talked about last time, but it's definitely one of the new things that happened, and that's checkboxes in Excel. Now, this is one where Google Sheets had it first, and Microsoft, was like, oh, that's cool. We got to do the exact same thing. So here on the Insert tab, about a third of the way over is this new thing called a checkbox. It's really just a bit of formatting that goes on top of a cell that has either true or false. So if I check something like right now, this cell is just empty. It says false up here in the formula bar. But if I would check that, it changes the value to true. But you have to admit the checkbox is so much cooler than false and true, right? We've had false and true forever. It just looks terrible. Now, the one thing that I wish that Microsoft would have done is allow that false or true to have an effect on like the neighboring cell. Like I want to cross that stuff off as we finish it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select all of these items next to the checkboxes, and under Home, Conditional Formatting, I'm going to add a new rule, and I'm going to use a formula, right? And you would think this formula would be really difficult. So I'm sitting here in G5, and I want to look to the left of me in F5. And so you're going to say equal F5, equal to checked or true or something like that. But it turns out, since F5 already says true or false, we're just set, right? So what I can do here is come into Format, say that I want to strike through, click OK, click OK. And now you see that as I finish something, I check the box and they strike through the thing that's next to it. They should have been doing that. Like, it's just a really obvious thing and very easy for us to do, but it's kind of a hassle that we even have to do it. right? So checkboxes in Excel. All right, next up. This is a cool one. And I remember there was a guy in New Zealand who did this in Excel as a free add-in, like going back 15 or 20 years. If you have a huge table of data, and I have an ugly, ugly spreadsheet here, as I click around, I obviously know where I'm at because I just clicked. But then if I go away and come back, you look at the screen and you're like, well, where am I? And of course, we can look up here in the address bar and see that I'm in column F, row 13. But they added something a lot better. They call it a focus cell. And I used to call it a crosshairs or something like that. So back here on the View tab in the Show category, there's something called Focus Cell. And I'm going to turn on the Focus Cell. And you can choose the color, right? So go into Focus Cell and Focus Cell color, choose whatever color you want. I'll go with a nice light green. And you see what happens. Watch as I move around the screen, the crosshairs, the things that light up in green, move. So it's very easy to follow where things are. Now, the big problem with the free add-in from my friend Ivan in New Zealand was that the free add-in would overwrite any colors that you had. So if you had cells that were already a color, when he made it green, he would lose that color, right? But see, this is working out great. It's a new layer. I don't want to get super nerdy and technical, but we have Excel, we have the layer where the values are, and then we have this drawing layer where the shapes are. If you insert a shape and charts, and you see that like all of that green highlighting is behind the shape layer. So, this is a brand new layer above the numbers, but below the shapes. And I even added a equal image function up here that was a little copy of last year's book. And you can see that it's on top of that, right? So that's being treated as a value, but it's definitely below the charts, right? So it's this great new place, and you can just turn that on, and you'll never get lost in your spreadsheets again. There is one interesting thing here called Show Auto Highlight, and this is just for find and replace. So if I do Control F for find, and let's say I look for August or something like that, and do find next, in addition to moving the cell pointer there, they should have turned on the focus cell, but of course they didn't. Thanks, Microsoft, for ruining that little. Oh, now, yeah, I don't know. It should have auto highlighted. And I actually, a lot of times I'll keep focus cell off, but I still have the find and replace still being found in show auto highlight. So that is a cool little function. Again, it's called focus cell back in the view tab. Choose whatever color you want. In a large spreadsheet, it will help you find your way, right? So that's another really small one, highlighting the active cell. But it's one that goes way back. Like people have been clamoring for this, and they would download the free add-in, and then we'd always get the complaints, oh, it's overwriting the colors, it's not perfect. And even back then, I think it was overwriting the undo stack. So if you try to use it, you would lose your ability to undo. So that was it's just good that it's in and it's working now. And if you like that feature, we have it. All right. The next three are all pivot tables. The great news here is there is a new young project manager at Microsoft who's in charge of pivot tables, and she is really just doing all kinds of great things. Things that the last guy, who was a friend of mine and had been at Microsoft for 40 years, and was a great guy, but there would be features that he would say, no, that will never happen. Like, just stop asking. It will never happen. Well, now we got this new young project manager, and she's like, oh, no, let's find a way to make that happen, which I love, right? So we're going to have three new things here: numeric formatting coming from the source data, auto refresh if the underlying data changes, and just a small improvement to show details. So let's switch over here to a data set that is great for pivot tables. If you've been here before, I'm a huge pivot table fan. I love pivot tables. I use pivot tables all the time. So I'm just going to create a little pivot table out here on the right-hand side. Normally, the pivot table goes for me to a new worksheet, but I just want to be able to see the data and the pivot table next to each other. So I'm going to come here to insert pivot table. I'm going to say I put it on an existing worksheet. I can put it here in column K. Click OK. Now wait, before I go on too far, for anyone here who is a fan of add this data to the data model, I have I'm slightly alarmed that our new person at Microsoft, who's doing all kinds of great things to regular pivot tables, is not doing those great things to the data model pivot tables. It used to be that data model pivot tables were better. Well, now, like the things I'm about to show you aren't happening in data model pivot tables. And I wonder I wonder if that means the data model pivot tables will go away someday. That's just something to worry about. Like if you're a person who likes to worry, like me, yeah, we might be worried about that. Anyway, so let's put sector down the left-hand side and revenue. Check this out. Did you see that? Revenue is currency with commas and zero decimal places. It's picking up the formatting from that cell right there, which I think is amazing. Let's take revenue out and put quantity in. See, quantity has thousand separators, but no decimal places, and that's what I get in the pivot table. This is something that has been just driving us nuts for years. Like, why can't the pivot table pick up the formatting? Well, now it does. Some of my friends, I think, are being a little too picky about this. They're like, well, if I change the data now, like if I make this be in thousands, so format cells, and then come in here to custom. This is a beautiful little format. And then I'm going to put a comma, which says divide by thousands, and then a K, which will display that as thousands. So if I change the underlying data after the fact, they're like, it doesn't change in the pivot table. Like, what do you want? Like the pivot table was created and they copied the formatting at that moment. And if you expect anything else to happen, you're just crazy and ungrateful. That's right, ungrateful. This is just going to make 99% of us super happy. I used to be able to create a pivot table in 6 clicks, and then I spent 8 clicks just trying to add the dollar sign in. So huge, huge improvement here. Okay, let's take the sector out. I'm going to put something smaller in, like region. So we just have central, east, and west, like that. All right, sum of quantity, sum of revenue. And I am going to change the underlying data. Now, most of you know that if we would change the underlying data in order to get the pivot table to update, we have to come here to pivot table analyze and click this button called refresh. But brand new is a button to the left called auto refresh, right? And with auto refresh, you don't have to go click refresh. It'll just automatically update. Now, I have $6.7 million worth of revenue here. I'm going to come up to this very first cell. I'm going to make that be, I don't know, 10 million. Like that. And as soon as I press enter, you see that 6.7 changed to 16.685. So it automatically updates, no need to refresh. This is huge, right? I remember I used to support the sales department. So in our accounting department, I had a nice office here. 5 doors down was the VP of sales. And so he knew where we were. And he would come down. He's like, hey, can we get a report of this? Can we get a report of that? And I built a dashboard for him long before dashboards were ever a thing. The only hassle was that in order for the dashboard to update, he would have to come back here he would have to select his cell on the pivot table analyze, and click auto refresh, or maybe go to data, refresh all. I'm not even sure they had that back then, which, uh, wonderful guy, great friend of mine, even to this day, 20 years later. But that just doomed that dashboard to fail because it was too many steps. He was never going to be able to select a cell on the pivot table and go refresh, right? And that was the great downfall of pivot tables. They didn't automatically refresh. They didn't calculate with the spreadsheet, and now they do calculate with the spreadsheet, which is great. Now, there's one weird gotcha here. So many times we have a pivot table, and then we come down here and we make some notes. Notes. This includes whatever, right? You put some notes here and all that stuff. And you put those notes kind of like, I leave a blank space below the pivot table and plenty of room. Now let's come here and screw things up, right? So I have a region field that has three values, central, east, and west. And I'm going to create a brand new value called south. And when I press enter, you'll see that over here, we're going to get a brand new value between east and west. Oh, actually, I spelled it wrong, first off, and they didn't even alphabetize it. Oh, that's kind of bad. East, central, west, south. All right. It's still okay because the pivot table has had room for that extra item. But now I'm going to add a fifth item. So we'll come here and we'll add the Alaska region. And that, unfortunately, caused the pivot table to get one row larger, and there's not room for it, right? So what they do now, it used to be they would refuse to make the change. Hey, this is going to crash into other data, and like they would tell you to move it. Well, now they're doing this thing. I don't know. Have you seen this spill error? So many of the new dynamic arrays will show a spill error that's just like, hey, there's not room for all these values. right? So when you see a spill error, when you see your pivot table, your beautiful pivot table automatically change to a spill error. They're just saying, hey, there's not room there. And they even, it's kind of nice, they show us like where they want it to be. Like, well, we just need one extra row here. So if I take this Control X and move it down here, then the pivot table comes back. I think there's going to be some people who are kind of alarmed when that changes to a spill error without any explanation of, hey, we crashed into some other data. You need to go fix that. Right? So we have pivot table improvements, numeric formatting from the source. Pivot table improvements, auto refresh, but watch out for that spill. It's going to be that kind of thing that is just a gotcha. And then this one is one that we had before, but it was so hidden. So let's say that I want to know what that $12 million dollars is. And in the past, if I wanted to see the underlying data behind that $12 million, dollars, all I had to do was double click. Well, now they've changed that double click into a button that was up here on the pivot table analyze tab, this button called show details. So I choose any cell. Let's choose this 1,618,000, show details. And it's the same as a double click. They'll insert a new cell, new sheet to the left with all of the numbers that make it up to that 1.6 million. If I would select these and look down here in the status bar, I see that same number, 161,877,000. One thing that I really like about this small change is they added a new heading up here at the top. It says details for sum of revenue, region West. Sometimes people will double click on all kinds of different cells, like what's that cell, right? And now I see details for sum of revenue, region South. So, lots of different chances for you to double click. And now we have a nice little title that shows us which one. I think that is a nice improvement. The one thing, anytime they add something new, like for example, insert checkbox, what used to be there? And what we lost is the 3D map. And we didn't lose it. They just moved it to where no one will ever find it. Out here in the data tab under data model 3D map, like you might as well just no one will ever find it there. And here on pivot tables, so I'm a little, I'm a little, little sarcastic about that change because that was a good feature that I used a lot, and they moved it. But I went back to pivot table analyze, and what used to be here was this weird feature called show hierarchy or create hierarchy, which in like 2,500 videos on YouTube, I've only used it once and only for that YouTube video and then never used it again after that. So this is actually a great improvement to have show details visible where people will see it instead of, you know, something that no one's ever going to use. All right. So those are our three pivot table improvements. And this is the perfect spot for the first CPE question, Stephanie,
All
if you could
right.
throw that
There
one.
you
All
go.
right. So, what new feature would you like to see added to pivot tables beyond these? Since we have someone at Microsoft who's super interested in pivot tables and is going to be adding all kinds of new stuff, uh, A, do you want to see median as a calculation? B, results in Roman numerals. You actually shocked me there, whoever said that one first. C, unique count as a calculation. That's cool. So if we have 6,000 rows, but only 27 unique customers, you'd be able to get that. Or D, automatic conditional formatting, which we can do conditional formatting in pivot tables, but it's super hard to do that. Uh,
We also had a couple questions in the
oh,
Q&A box if you want to see that.
okay, yeah.
It was about the refresh, but I'll give you guys another few seconds to answer the poll.
To see, stop sharing, and then Q&A is in.
I can read them to you.
Yeah, sure. I'll get there.
There,
No, I
to
get
end
there.
the
I get there. I
poll.
found. I'm sorry.
Okay, the end of video.
Will a refresh update the formatting of the pivot table if the underlying data changes? It does not. Boy, that's a good idea though. That's a good compromise. And does pivot table auto refresh work on any cell inclusive of text and numbers? Yes. Yeah, it will. So like for example, I changed the region from southeast to Alaska, and that actually caused a new item in the row area. So yeah, both of those. The second one for sure. Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, you see the results there, Bill?
Actually, no, I don't. Let me come in.
I know Zoom changed their
Zoom.
interface,
Yeah,
like I
that's
said.
MrExcel, not Mr. Zoom. Oh yeah, okay, I do. So it looks like unique count as a calculation, 48%. Automatic conditional formatting, 42%. Roman numerals, only one of us, and median as a calculation. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, all right, sounds great. All right, good. Let me go back to share my screen. Share. Okay. All right. This next one is too new. No, this one, page 196 in the book. This is not too new. This one is in the book. Interesting little feature they gave us here. Sometimes you get a spreadsheet in some other language, a language that you may not speak. And so what they've given us is a brand new function called translate. So we have some text, and then if we give it the code for the source language and then what target language we want to switch it over into. And what's really nice for us, if you're listening to me, you understand English, I'm hoping, is that if you don't put anything for the target language, they use English. I have a phrase here, Excel is my favorite program, and the translate function, make this larger so we can see it, translate function. So it says we want to translate whatever's in A4, and then for the source language, I just leave it blank because it's English, and then I want to go to this particular code. A little frustrating that we have to use these codes. These are ISO codes, so like there's a table out there that you can figure out which table. It'd be nice if we could probably, just use the language, but these are the codes that we have to deal with. And it does a great job, right? So it just goes out and gets the translation. So let's see. More for apps is awesome. That down, and you see it kind of has that little green. Well, that was fast. It was really, really fast. It had that little green triangle as it goes out to the web and gets the translation. And then when all those the green circles are done, you're great. So they gave us the translate function. They also gave us something called detect language. If you can't tell what language something is in, detect language, you just pass the text and it'll guess what the language is, which I guess is useful. And then this is the lookup table that I found out on the web with all the different languages and the language codes that you would use with this, right? So that's a cool little function there, the translate function. Nice improvement that came along uh, last year. So translate. All right, good. Checkboxes, as you remember, came around because Google Sheets all of a sudden had a function that Excel didn't have. This next function, import CSV and import text, is a huge mystery to me. It just came out 5 or 6 weeks ago, and the last spreadsheet program to have this was Lotus 123 back in 1980 something. Right? Why are they trying to match this feature that we have not seen anywhere? And I'm just, you know, like there has to be some underlying reason why the people at Microsoft thought it was worth the engineering cycles to do this for us. So let me show you what it does. There's two different functions here: import text and import CSV. And import CSV is definitely the easier one. All right, so I just have a small little CSV file here. I don't want to open the CSV file. I want to suck it into this dashboard. Right, so we just come here and say equal import CSV, and then point to the path. I'm going to call out the optional arguments here because they're kind of interesting. Skip rows, take rows, and then locale. So if you have numbers that have the 1,000 separators a period and the decimal separator is a comma, you can specify a locale like that will deal with that. All right, so I just point to this file here, and then it'll just pull into that spot, right? Which is something that we used to be able to do in Lotus. And I probably did it in Lotus, 40 years ago. But for the life of me, I don't know why I want to do this now. And of course, we have Power Query, so we can come out here to data from text or CSV and point to that same file and drop it right here. So like we already have something perfectly fine that does this. And you're just like, what's going on here? And some people panicked and like, you're getting rid of Power Query. Oh no, we'll never do that. They said, like, we're investing, in a better Power Query experience. It's not that. But I just have this sneaking suspicion that something's going to happen here in the next couple of months that all of a sudden we'll say, this is why they needed import CSV to be a thing. Like this has to be some helper thing that's going to help some better feature. I'm guessing. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Okay, let's talk about skip rows. Let's say that we didn't want that title at the top, the headings at the top. We just wanted the data. So we would say here that we wanted to skip one row, or uh, take, or actually here, wait, before we do that, I love this. Positive numbers mean skip them from the top. If it was a negative number, so down at the bottom, let's say we have that run date, or there's a total row and then a blank row and then a run date. If we would skip rows of -3, it'll skip from the bottom. It'll remove those from the bottom. And then take is if we only wanted, let's say, the first row or only the last row. Maybe the total is in the third row from the end. We want the -3 for take rows, and we'll just get those bottom three. All right, so nice that they added those two features there. And then import text. Import text, this is for a fixed width file. You know, if you do data text to columns and you go in not to delimited, but the fixed width, and you specify the locations. The weird thing, let's see, where actually, yeah, here we go. So let's say you have fields that start in position 1, and then in position 10, and position 18. Whoever programmed this is one of those programmers that must deal in Python a lot, where Python starts counting everything as 0. So you would specify a delimiter of 0, comma 9, comma 17 to get something that starts in character 1, character 10, and character 18. Now I guess it allows us to import fixed width. And for me, it took me back to a seminar they did in Calumet City, Illinois, 10 years ago, right? Wonderful lady there named Liz, who worked for some foreign consulate. So there was a consulate in Chicago, and she had a couple of different problems. And she's like, this is just the way that we have to do it. You know, we're not an American company, and the Home Office is forcing all the consulates to do it this way. And one of her problems was that she was getting an ACH file from the bank, and she would take that ACH data every single day and go into data, text to columns, and fixed width. And she had to break it into 205 individual columns. So that's like 204 clicks, the most monotonous thing I've ever seen in my life. I can't bring myself to actually do it. It was terrible. And back then, I used Power Query in this episode 2294, 6 years ago, to solve that problem. But what's really interesting is this new way that we can specify a delimiter. We can just say, hey, we want a field that starts at character 0, character 1, character 2, character 3, character 4. And so the way that I can do that, there's a great function called sequence. I want one row, 208 columns starting at 0. And that's going to generate the numbers 0 to 207 going across, right? It's a cool little function that I'm not going to actually just use like here. I'm going to wrap the import text around it. So that's our path, comma, and then that delimiter is going to be the sequence. We'll put a close parenthesis there so the parentheses match. And you'll see like right up here we have ACH. So that's in 1, 2, 3, and then 951, 951, 53. Like we've now successfully broken that out without having to click 208 times or 207 times. What a really cool improvement there for that very like, Liz in Calumet City. If you still have that job, yeah, this is a much better way to solve that problem. Here we want to skip rows, so I want to skip the first row, so comma 1, and that should get rid of that heading of ACH, and now I just have the numbers. So import text and import CSV. I don't know. Like right now, I'm very confused. Like why they gave us this and why they think it's cool. And it's actually our second CPE question is about this. So let's put that one up.
Yep, give it 1 second. All right. There you go.
Okay, so why would you use import CSV to pull some CSV into a range? A, to fill a table on a larger dashboard. B, because my IT department blocks Power Query. That would be evil. C, to make your workbook look more AI powered to your manager. Or D, because opening a CSV file the normal way uses too much electricity. 2 months from now, when we finally figure this out, when it becomes apparent why they did this, I'll make sure to let us all know. Any Q&A, Stephanie?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Was there any questions?
Yeah, let me read them to you because it would just be
Oh,
easier.
thanks. So.
Can you use speech recognition input and have it translate?
Wow. Boy, that's a great idea. The only chance we have with that is Copilot, and Copilot is getting massive changes this month. Um, and they're taking all the my favorite Copilot features and removing them. So I don't have an answer on that. Let's
Okay.
let's send that answer out tomorrow.
He's been having a lot of good questions. Yeah. Um, Another, it's not like a question, but we'll be grateful if you could share the Excel file, I think.
Yes, we can do
So
that.
yeah, so we'll make sure
You
you
can
get
send that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Okay. And th those are the results for the poll question.
Okay, cool. So it looks like number one, to fill a table on a larger dashboard, 76%. Yeah, I guess so. And I feel bad for the 11% of you that your IT department blocks Power Query. It's that darn IT department. And only 5% of us trying to save electricity. So that's great. That's great. All right. All right. Cool. Next one. I said we had really big features and we have really small features. And this is one that I hope the Excel team did not waste any time on. I hope that this was a PowerPoint feature and they just gave it to us for free, right? Because if they wasted 1 minute of anyone's time in doing this, I would just be shocked. So we have a draw tab. We have a draw tab where you can come here and make all kinds of little squiggles or shapes. It's just terrible to actually draw something. So I'm going to choose the red pen and then come out here and I'm going to attempt to freeform draw a square. And then at the end, I'm not going to let go of the button. I'm going to hold the button down and they say, oh, it looks like Bill was trying very badly to draw a square. And they change my scribble into an actual square, right? Let me try an oval here. Yeah, right. This is called Draw Perfect Shapes by pausing at the end of the draw, right? And yep, it's a new feature. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. So just next time you need to draw a shape. And of course, we could have done any of this with insert shapes, chosen a triangle and drawn a perfect triangle. I don't know why anyone would. I don't know. I don't know. It would be interesting to find out if anyone thinks that this is cool and you're gonna like it's gonna be life changing. You're gonna start changing the drawing shapes with the draw tab tomorrow. But here we are. Okay, next one. Really good one. This is an awesome. Two new functions that came along early last year called Group By and Pivot By. And I don't want to scare anyone away here, but I'm actually going to use the words et lambda, two Greek words um, that I normally like would never mention that because like if I was at a party, you would never mention eta lambdas because people would just go running. Okay, so the idea here with Group By and Pivot By is we can create something that looks a lot like a pivot table from a formula. Now, the day that this came out, the great advantage was no one would ever have to go to the data tab and click refresh all because the formulas would automatically update. They're part of the calc chain. But today, yeah, well, they've added the auto refresh, so the pivot tables are automatically getting updated as well. Pivot by is the one that I was most excited about, but I like to start talking about group by just because it's simpler and it's the one that in real life I'm using all the time. So we have a data set over there on the left-hand side, and I want to get total sales by one field. So I'm going to build a pivot table, let's say, where I drag category into the row fields and then sales into the value field and get sum of sales. So here's how this works. So we say group by, and they say, okay, what are your row fields? Well, my row fields are the category here. I don't have to press F4 because I'm not copying this anywhere in this particular case. And then where are the values? Okay, I could choose either sales or cost, or actually both. And then this is awesome. Um, what's the function? So they give us a pretty nice little set of functions here, more functions that are available in a pivot table, like median. For those people who said that you wanted medians and pivot tables, this is the way to do it. The group by function and the pivot by function. There is at the very bottom something called count. Oh no, they don't have count distinct. It's still missing count distinct. Percentage of. All right, so I'm just going to use some, but there's more options here than before. And then field headers. Do we want to show field headers? Yeah, let's definitely show field headers. It's weird. They have zero is no, but one is yes. Calculate the field headers, but don't show them. or yes and show. I don't know why we would put them in but not show them. I just don't get that. Total depth in this case, we just want grand totals. And sort order, we want to sort by, if we want it by alphabetically by fruit, vegetables, and herbs, that'd be column one. If we want it by sales, that'd be column two. And if I want it descending sales, I say negative two. So the two means it's the second column in the report. The negative two says to sort descending. And then filter array and field relationship, we're not going to use those today. So that gets me a nice little summary of the largest item at the top, fruit, herbs, vegetables. Just really simple and really fast. And I do this a lot just to get, here's the data set. Let's figure out what the top selling items are or something like that. Now I'm going to add in sales and cost. So that's just here where I have C4 to C21. I'm going to choose C4 to D21. And you see that we now have one smart enough to make the column wider. Oh, and the formatting is just really bad. Let's make that be currency with 0 decimal places. All right, so there we have a report of sales and cost. Let's add in a second row field. So I want both category and product. So this will be A4 to B21. Now, oh, this is a nice report. Still horrible formatting. We're going to fix that. All right, so within fruit, it's sorted. It actually needs to be sorted by column 3 now because things moved over a little bit. So -3 here. All right, so the largest fruit at the top, cherry, and then the next largest. It would be nice to have a subtotal after each fruit. So that's the total depth. Where is that? That's this one here, total depth. I'm going to say that I want to sort by grand totals and subtotals. So now I get a total subtotal of fruit. It's just it's a really powerful function. Can it do everything that pivot tables do? No, it can't. But it can do a lot of what pivot tables do. Okay, so I did a little comparison this morning of, I'm kind of still worried about the data model. They've actually taken a lot of calculations away from the data model. In a regular pivot table, we have 11 functions: sum, count, average, max, min, product, which is a weird one that multiplies all the numbers together, count, numeric, standard deviation 2 ways, variance 2 ways. And pivot by has all of those 11. They're all there, plus more. Array to text, concat, mode.single, percent of, that's a cool one that we're going to talk about more later. Median, and then this one. This is the one that scares people. It's a function called lambda. Lambda is, a Greek letter, and it was actually goes back to the pioneers in computing were trying to build a lambda function that could do any other function. So here's an example. Say that I want to do a distinct count, which unfortunately pivot by and group by don't deal with yet. So in this case, the row field is sector. The customer field is, this is weird, it's a text field, right? And I want to know within each sector how many unique customers we have. So that's the row field is column D. The values are column E. And then here, I actually write a brand new function. All right, so we're going to pass it column G, which is the customers. And then it's going to do the unique of G and then a count A. So count how many unique items we have. And in here where I have this lambda function, any lambda function that you can write. So like all of a sudden, if you have some weird calculation that your company makes you do in pivot tables, we can now potentially write a lambda function that will do that function, which I think is just kind of amazing. And I don't know. In the future, am I going to start to use pivot by or group by? I'm not really sure. Okay, so let's just take a look here at how pivot by changes. The red fields are the new fields. So in the past where we would give it row fields and then values, there's now an option to give it column fields. What fields do we want to have going across the columns? So here you can see that we're using column fields of region, right? And so that generates the items going across, right? So group by and pivot by, really interesting functions that allow us to generate a pivot table on the fly. All right, so that gives us our third CPE question. If we could put that one up, Stephanie.
Yep, there you go.
A formula to create a pivot table. What's the best feature? No need to click refresh if the underlying data changes. You can copy the formula and make many pivot tables instantly. You can use that lambda calculation instead of the 11 calculations in a pivot table, or you can predict next quarter sales using astrology.
You do got a couple more questions too. I can read them.
Yeah, sure,
It'd
that'd
be
be great.
like, does the shape overlay values? So that was back when you were doing the shapes.
The shape does overlay values. It's on top.
Yeah.
It's on the
Okay,
top of there.
cool.
So it's just a rail drawing there. Yeah.
And then does group by also format values like
It
text or
doesn't.
numbers
It
based
doesn't.
upon source?
Yeah, yeah. It does not. And that's the guy, Joe McDade on the Excel team who created dynamic arrays for us. He knows that he has a huge problem that he's not smart enough to format all of the results of the array. And it's on his whiteboard of things to get done. Yeah, it's just I think it's very hard and complicated, and it's going to take a while before that formatting gets fixed. So like you saw me, every time the pivot table changed shape, I was reformatting things, and that's the downside of this for sure. So yeah.
And there's the results for you.
Okay, yeah. So number one is you can use the lambda calculation. That's awesome, 48%. And then second is no need to click refresh if the underlying data changes. And then you can make copies of the formula to make many pivots instantly. Perfect. All right, awesome. Okay, good. Here we are. The next two just drive me nuts. Microsoft is investing so much in Copilot. Everywhere we turn, everything is artificial intelligence and the whole bit. Um, this Copilot function now allows us to have a formula that calls to Copilot, right? And so, here's just a really simple one. It says, "Give me three animals," right? And I get dog, cat, and elephant. And then I can refer to those cells, describe each animal in one sentence, and I give it that range B13 hash, which is those three cells. All right. Um, there's some really annoying limits here. First off, you have to have a Copilot subscription. Uh, 100 functions in 10 minutes. So like that one function that asks for the three animal descriptions, that's one call. But you can hit that 100 like really, really fast. And then, if you do 100 in this 10 minutes, 100 in this 10 minutes, 100 in this 10 minutes, that's your 300 for the hour. And then you have to go do something else. Um, it just drives me crazy. Either go all in and let us do everything we want to do. Like, I just, people are talking about Claude and how amazing Claude is, but that they run out of their quota for the day, by 9:30 in the morning. And unless they want to pay $100 a month instead of $20 a month, they have to go on. So, just some interesting little examples here of Copilot. So I'm going to ask, I'm building a little dashboard about a taco truck here. So I'm going to ask for 10 fake reviews for a taco truck, make them all extremely positive. And it goes off to the web, right? And writes for me 10 taco truck reviews. And then I'm going to evaluate those reviews, ask for the sentiment, and I want it either as positive, negative, or the tilde means just in the middle. And then say, what's the main topic in the review? So, like, imagine if you had this data for real and you wanted to very quickly get positive or negative. Uh, like, this would actually be super useful, provided you didn't go more than the 300 calls. So we'll put it right here. And we'll go out, right? So, this has the best street tacos in town. It's about street tacos. And they're all, of course, positive because we asked for the positive, right? So nice. They had this before as an add-in from Excel Labs that was actually going out to ChatGPT and you had to pay for it. Now it's just part of your Copilot subscription. So you're still paying for it, I guess. But kind of interesting little feature there with the Copilot function. Okay, agent mode. Oh my gosh. It drives me nuts. In this book, I have 40 pages on Copilot, and they eliminated 38 pages like overnight. They said sometime in February, and a lot of people were reporting that it's gone right now. So let me open up agent mode. Actually, it's just here already. Any workbook control in. Um, I'm going to come out to Copilot. Super hard to find agent mode the first time. Here under message Copilot, first off, it says I have to save the file first. So file, save as. And just agent mode. And then here we have a plus sign and the two sliders, so they're called tools. In tools, we find agent mode. Frontier means that it's in beta. They say that it should be out of beta and anyone is like generally available, but mine's still in beta. I don't know why. Um, so that gets me into agent mode. And now this is actually far more amazing than any of the old Copilot stuff. Um, that's great that they built something more amazing than all the old Copilot stuff. But then just to get rid of all the old Copilot stuff before this is rolled out to everybody, it just really drives me crazy. So I want to design a funnel chart, design a spreadsheet to illustrate a sales funnel with steps from step one to step six. Make a funnel chart that is colorful, right? So with that, it's going to go out and try and solve my problem. And I'm actually going to read these to you here. Most of the time, what they're showing us is pretty boring, but it's going to have a big struggle because funnel charts don't want to be colorful. They all want to be one color. And so it's going to try and figure out how to do this. We're at 12:45. I'm going to give it a minute to try and get its first step here. All right. Oh, wow. Look at that. Okay. So they cheated. They made the table colorful. Uh, and they realized, let me fix the chart creation approach. I'll create the chart without trying to access individual cells. Um, and they still can't try. They still can't get the colors. Um, and now here's step three, right? So this whole thing where it goes and tries to do something in Excel and then is upset that Excel can't do it. And then it tries multiple times. I've seen this work for like 15 minutes, which is just wild. Like it keeps trying different things over and over and over. I once had to create a sales funnel where all the columns were a complete different color. And I still to this day don't know how they did it because I can't do that. Oh my God, look at that. Okay. Uh, yeah. When I tested it this morning, it finally gave up. Like it never got to step six. It gave up at step four. All right. So this is pretty good. This is like having, an intern and, you're like, I don't know how to do this. Go figure this out. Right. And in that fast, it was able to create the steps here. I can type my own steps in, type in my own values. I have a nice colorful chart. So this is great. Like this was a really, really good example of agent mode succeeding and doing something even better than its manager. I'm going to personify it than its manager could do. That was just a massive agent mode win there. But if you'd been here 2 hours ago, when I tested it, it came up with a horrible blue funnel chart that just looked completely wrong, right? So you never know. I hate that. It's non-deterministic, which means that you're going to get one answer today and a different answer tomorrow. And this is Excel. Like I want the same answer every day. But in that particular case, I'm really happy with the results. Okay, a few quick ones here, real quick. Dot notation or trim range. Uh, I have an example here with an old VLOOKUP. This function right here, this VLOOKUP function. And you see that where we get to the part where, so we're looking up Apple in this table, and rather than point to that table and press F4, they did what I see a lot of people do, which is just point to columns F through G. All right, which in theory works unless they actually start looking at all 1 million rows, and then you're really going to slow the spreadsheet down. So sometimes, we want to point to just the things we can see. And so they've given us a brand new function called trim range. Trim range says, hey, any blank cells above the data or any blank cells below the data, we're going to get rid of. Trim range is one way to do that, but they've given us a shortcut. And I hate the shortcut because it's just super hard to understand. So like we were using F:(G). So we at this point we understand that means columns F and G. But if you would add a period before the colon, it says get rid of all the blank rows above. A period after the colon says get rid of all the blank rows below, and a period before. So this looks really stupid. The period colon period looks like a little, I don't know, like a little bowling rack of dots there. That means get rid of all the blanks above and the blanks below, right? So this is almost for awareness when you get that hotshot college kid coming in and starting to do things. You're like, what is that? Oh, yeah, that's the way to get rid of things at the top. Compatibility versions. This is one that came out a few years ago. I probably have shown this one, but they're about to do a whole bunch more of these. Um, the danger is that two people on two different computers open the same Excel spreadsheet and get different results. And there's a function here, the LEN function. I'm not a person that deals in emojis. Like I've never created an emoji in my spreadsheet ever. But apparently some people do. And some people who do create emojis are kind of mad that if they ask for the length of this, which has three emojis, that the length of that is six, because each of those emojis counts as two. And they're like, no, there's only three emojis there. Now, this is a huge edge case to me. First off, the edge is people that use emojis. And second off, the people that actually need to count how many emojis are in that cell. Like who's impacted by this? But people have been complaining. And so these functions, these five functions, if we go out to the formulas tab and under calculation options, there's now something called compatibility version. And you can switch from version one to version two. And if you switch to version two, that six is going to change back to a three. And there's other things here that are going to be implemented soon where we're going to have an option. Do we want to calculate the old way or calculate the new way? So this is a way to make sure that if you're changing how it calculates, like Microsoft's not going to change how it calculates. If you're changing, if you're deciding to change how it calculates, someone's coming in here to calculation options and choosing a particular uh, um, compatibility version, for some particular reason. So it allows them to answer those people who are at the edge but correct. Like that's not the right answer, and they can deliver one. I ran into one the other day. What was I doing? It was I had dates, and I was post dating the dates. So let's take January 23rd, 30 or no 28, January 3rd, 23rd, 28, which I was thinking was 1928, and then let's do 217 of 29, and then um, 3/5 of 30, and what I was doing is text. Sorry. So 01 23 of 28, 02 17 of 29, and then 03 05 of 30. Now, when I typed those numbers, they came out correctly, but if I ask for the date value, the date value is using some weird math that says that anything up to 2029 is treated in one century, and then everything before that is treated as the previous century. And I was getting right here, that one right there, I was getting dates in 1930, which clearly doesn't fit. Like it doesn't fit with any of the other data. And I complained to Microsoft. I was like, hey, you're not doing this correctly. And they're like, oh yeah, there's a huge bug. And I'm like, well, this bug's going to start to really affect people soon as we get, within a couple more years. And so they're like, oh, we'll have to do a compatibility version for date value to fix that. So if you wanted to respect the Windows settings, respect them. All right. We're doing great here. Just a couple of cool functions. Percent of function. This is one that, we have to do all the time, for each item, what's the percentage of the total? And of course, we all know what we have to do here is put a sum in at the bottom and then equal sales divided by that number and press F4 to lock that down. I think if you're here, you're probably pretty comfortable with that. But what they've done is they've given us a brand new way to do this without the total. It's called the percent of. So percent of this number as a percentage of all of these numbers, press F4, and it just does the math without the grand total. This has been out for about a year now. Like everyone should have percent of if you have Microsoft 365. Okay, last really, really confusing one here. Regular expressions are a way to do pattern matching in Excel. Regular expressions. So I would call this RegEx, but a lot of people call it RegEx. I know it's out there. I know that Excel never supported it. I know that it's super confusing, but they've given us new functions: RegEx test, RegEx replace, RegEx extract, and then added regex support into xlookup and xmatch. So here is a bunch of text, and I want to see, are there digits in that text? So the regex pattern match is square brackets 0 to 9. I'm looking for everything from 0 to 9. And so here, regex test, look through B6 and tell me, does it have a 0 through 9? If I get a true, then it really has a number. Here, 6 bananas, SIX spelled out, is not a number, right? So I can find if the numbers are there. Filtered all just the things that have digits. If there's not a digit, now if there's no zip code, I'm not going to send a $20 item out to those people. So filter all the things that don't have digits. So that's a filter to where the regex test is showing that there's digits. Or just get me the digits. So regex extract, replace the digits. This is great. Like replace all. Imagine where's my VA example? My dad used to go to the VA all the time, and everyone was known by the last four of their social security, and everything else was always changed to the star, right? So this is using regex replace to put stars in the 3, 2. The hardest thing here is figuring out all of these rules, like what the code is. And today I just go to ChatGPT and I say, all right, this is what I'm trying to do, and let them write the code. So new options for XLOOKUP and XMatch. All right, let's put up our fourth CPE question about regex.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
All right.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So have you ever used regex for pattern matching? A, yes, I love it. B, yes, but it is super confusing. C, yes, but I use ChatGPT to write the patterns. D, no, I can't even pronounce regex.
But you have another question.
Okay.
Does trim range auto update if new rows are inserted?
It does. It does. It's beautiful. Which is, that's why we're specifying column F and G, because we know that we're going to add more items to that table later. Yeah, they did a really good job. Really good job of that.
End it. All right, sure. There you go. There's the results.
Okay, great. Yeah, so 58%. No, I can't
Yeah.
even pronounce regex. Yeah, I'm with you. Like I know it's out there, and it has to be really, I have to be desperate to need to turn to regex. But for the people who are good at it, like I have a friend, I have a guy that works here, and I can go to him and like, okay, what's the regex for this? And it lets you do things that you wouldn't normally do. So, okay, we got 2 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, great. Um, there is a feature that's been in Excel for a long, 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 long time back here on the data tab called data from picture. And this thing is hideous and does not work at all. And I'm super angry with Microsoft for putting it in Excel. When two kids in somewhere in the Middle East for $10 will sell you their version that does it perfectly. I'm like, how can two kids for $10 give us this and Microsoft cannot do it? What we now have is we have in a way that we can do this. So watch, I'm gonna copy this path, and out here I'm just gonna come select the cell, home, Copilot, and in Copilot the plus sign, which allows me to upload images. So there's my data from picture. I'm gonna upload that receipt to Copilot, and then say extract I should spell it right. The text from this receipt. And Copilot, like this isn't agent mode, this is just a feature of Copilot. It's going to analyze that data, and it shows me what it looks like. And then at the end, it's going to say, do you want me to clean this up to a structured Excel table? Yes. Structured Excel table, 3 columns. And then ultimately here, it's going to say, do you want me to insert this into the sheet? And I'm amazed it like gets everything right. Right. So the next time that you have to do text to or image to text, don't use this thing that's built back here on the data tab. It's terrible. It gets everything wrong. The Copilot version of it just does a great improvement. All right, cool. That's just about everything we have today. Clean data will actually pop up and say, it looks like you have misspellings in your data, and it offers to fix those. And then for those of you who are Power Query fans, data Power Query. They've now offered that in Web Excel. So if you're in Excel Online, there is a version of Power Query back there on the Data tab that works. It's a little bit slower, but it does a nice job. So there we go. That's
All
another
right.
thing that's new. All right. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right, great. Okay, so like I had mentioned earlier, you'll get the recording for this tomorrow, as well as we'll get the workbook from Bill and the 2025 Mr. Excel 2025 PDF. So keep a
Okay.
lookout for that. Definitely be by tomorrow. The CPE credit, if you answered 3 out of 4 questions, it will come from Bill directly and expect that within the next week. But if you have any questions or anything, just don't hesitate to reach out. But I just want to thank you for joining us today. And thank you again, Bill, as always. It's a
Thanks,
pleasure to have
Stephanie.
you.
I appreciate it. All right. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Well, thank you guys.